For years, I let my brother wear the crown of tech genius while I stayed silent about my success, until one promotion shattered the illusion and forced our entire family to confront the truth we'd buried under years of rivalry, pride, and silence. What followed wasn't just a reckoning, but a transformation. The Easter sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of our childhood home as I, Brianna Hayes, stepped into the living room. The familiar scent of lemon polish and roast lamb wafted through the air, instantly transporting me to 100 similar holidays. But this one felt different, heavier somehow, tense, like something long buried was preparing to surface. "Brianna, there you are," Mom called from the kitchen, her tone cheerful, but a little too high-pitched. "James and Heather just arrived." Of course they had. My older brother, James Hayes, always made an entrance, always gathered the attention of every room he entered, the tech prodigy, the golden boy, the founder of Next Tier Technologies, the startup that had allegedly revolutionized enterprise AI integration. He was the name people remembered. And I was the one in the background. Not that I hadn't accomplished anything. I was the director of acquisitions at Synergy Tech, a role that involved evaluating and integrating emerging tech startups. I was good at what I did, very good. But within this house, those achievements barely made a ripple. James greeted me with his usual bare hug. "Bree, still doing whatever it is you do at that corporate place?" I forced a smile. "Yes, still doing strategic acquisitions and managing multi-million-dollar integrations." "Sounds thrilling," he replied, already scanning the room for his next audience. Mom called us all to the dining table. Dad, Uncle Rob, Grandma Eleanor, Aunt Linda, James's wife Heather, and their 2 kids were already seated. I took my place beside Grandma Eleanor, who patted my hand. "How's work, sweetheart?" I opened my mouth to answer, but James launched into a detailed story about a recent investor meeting, drowning out any chance I had to speak. Everyone leaned in, enraptured. "And that's when I realized," James said, smirking. "We didn't need Series C funding. We needed an exit." I choked a little on my water. "Exit? You sold Next Tier?" I asked. He paused, eyes narrowing. "Partnered." Grandma raised an eyebrow. "With whom?" "Synergy Tech," he said, casually. I stared at him. "That's impossible. I would have known," he smirked. "You might want to check with your M&A department." My blood ran cold. My department. My company. A deal I didn't know about. This wasn't just a family dinner anymore. This was a declaration of war. After dinner, I stepped out to the porch, needing air. Moments later, James joined me, hands in his pockets. "You knew I worked at Synergy," I said. "Sure. But you're not exactly top brass, are you?" I turned to face him. "I'm the one who decides which companies we acquire. If you're in talks with us, that means someone went around me." He hesitated, just long enough to confirm my suspicion. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked away. "Because you would have blocked it if it wasn't viable? Yes, that's my job." "Exactly," he snapped. "Your job is to kill dreams with spreadsheets. Mine is to build things." I was stunned into silence. For years, I'd tolerated the dismissiveness, the casual undermining, but this crossed a line. "You think you're the only one who builds? Without the right business strategy, your tech would rot in a basement somewhere. You needed a way out, and Synergy is it. But guess what? I'm the reason Synergy knows what tech is worth buying." He laughed bitterly. "So, now you want credit?" "I want acknowledgement." We stood in silence, the chasm between us yawning like a canyon. The door creaked open behind us. "Kids, dessert," Grandma called. Her voice softened. "Please." We walked back inside, not speaking. But something had shifted. The fiction of James the Genius and Brianna the Forgettable had begun to crack, and I wasn't going to let it reform. The week after the board meeting, my schedule was jam-packed, but James lingered in the back of my mind like a program running. Silently in the background, inefficient, distracting, and impossible to shut down. Our tense exchange and his emotional outburst had left a fissure between us. And yet, beneath the bitterness, something deeper had stirred. A recognition, perhaps, that the rift in our relationship wasn't irreparable. At work, Synergy Tech's acquisition team began formal integration talks with James's startup, Next Tier. I sat in the first 3 meetings as a strategic advisor, mostly silent, watching James squirm in a sea of suits and spreadsheets. Gone was the commanding presence. He exuded in a hoodie at a product demo. In its place was a defensive, slightly deflated man trying to assert technical superiority in a space governed by business calculus. He was drowning. On the 3rd day, during a post-meeting coffee break, I found him staring out the 14th floor window, arms crossed tightly. "You okay?" I asked, my tone neutral. He didn't turn. "They think I'm some nerd who doesn't understand business." "Are they wrong?" He winced, finally facing me. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Not at all," I said honestly. "It's not a joy watching you flounder. You're my brother, James." A beat passed. "They think I should step aside," he muttered. "I haven't heard that," I said carefully. "But they are concerned about scalability and leadership. You're the face of the code, but you've never built infrastructure for a company beyond a dev team." James let out a bitter laugh. "You sound like Dad." "No," I said quietly. "Dad dismissed me completely. I'm telling you the truth because I respect what you've built. But if you want Nextier to survive this acquisition with your name still attached, you need to adapt." His expression softened. "How did you do it?" "Do what?" "Get them to take you seriously. You're you. You don't code. You talk. You plan. You sit in meetings and make decisions. How do they know you're not just faking it?" I blinked, caught off guard by the rawness. Because I stopped needing to prove anything. I stopped pretending I had to be you. His shoulders slumped slightly. "Then how do I become more like you?" he asked. "You don't," I said. "You become a version of you that listens, that collaborates, that understands the whole machine, not just the code." That evening, Synergy's executive team held a private dinner for the founders of acquired startups. James was invited, and, to my surprise, he showed up in a blazer instead of a hoodie. He even combed his hair. He sat 2 seats away from me, sandwiched between the CFO and the director of product integration. I watched from across the table as he asked questions about scalability strategy, nodded thoughtfully at user adoption, metrics, and even complimented another founder's data migration approach. Progress. Later, as dessert was being served, our CEO, Alyssa Cortez, raised her glass. "To those who built incredible things with passion and grit," she said, making eye contact with each of us. "And to those who will help scale those things for the future. Together, we create impact." James clinked glasses. "With me." A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. 3 weeks later, James had started showing up at integration meetings early. He'd started listening more and interrupting less. He even asked me to review a proposed restructuring of Nextier's internal API systems, a collaboration that would have been unthinkable just a month prior. One Thursday afternoon, I walked into the conference room and found him alone, whiteboarding a flowchart. "Is this your idea of a good time now?" I teased. He turned, looking sheepish. "Marcus asked me to lead a sub-team for the data merge," he said. "I should prepare a technical pitch. I figured visuals might help." "Visuals help everyone," I said, eyeing the neat diagrams. "You've got a solid proposal," he beamed. "Really?" "Yes, just remember to connect it to business outcomes." "Speed is great, but what will it do for user experience or revenue?" He scribbled a note. "Got it." Then he paused. "You know, I used to think you weren't really in tech," he said, "because you didn't code, because you didn't care about the stack or the kernel or the architecture. And now? I think maybe you're the kind of tech person the industry needs more of." I wasn't prepared for the lump in my throat. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Easter dinner at our place. Everyone expected. Don't be late. Love you." I showed James the screen. He groaned. "Back into the lion's den. It's just family." Exactly. Easter Sunday. Dinner started like most family gatherings. Smiles, cautious hugs, and the uncomfortable dance of unresolved tension. Heather greeted me warmly. Uncle Rob cracked one of his bad jokes. Grandma Eleanor kissed me and whispered, "Pace yourself. This will be interesting." The conversation stayed safely on the surface until dinner was served. Then, as if cued by fate, James cleared his throat. "I need to say something," he said. The room quieted instantly. First, to Brianna. "I owe you an apology. I haven't respected your role, your expertise, or your achievements. And I was wrong. Your success doesn't threaten mine. It complements it." I froze, a fork halfway to my mouth. "And to the rest of you," James continued, "I've spent years performing successfully. I hid how badly Next Tier was struggling. The acquisition wasn't some triumphant exit. It was a lifeline, and I'm grateful for it, especially because it led me to finally see my sister for who she truly is. A brilliant, respected leader in this field." Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Brianna, we owe you an apology too. We never celebrated you the way we did James. We should have. We're proud of you." Mom added, her voice thick. "Very proud." I blinked fast. "Thank you," I managed. "That means more than you know." Grandma Eleanor lifted her glass. "To Brianna and James," she said. "May their partnership in family and work continue to evolve." Glasses clinked, hearts softened, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged exactly where I was, fully seen, fully heard. The weeks following Easter felt like spring cleaning for the soul. Something had shifted between James and me, something subtle but unmistakable. The tension that used to cloud every interaction had thinned. In its place was a fragile, growing trust. We hadn't turned into best friends overnight, but we had stopped walking on emotional eggshells. Professionally, we were making progress too. Our collaboration on the Synergy Next Tier integration was drawing attention, not just internally, but across industry networks. A few tech blogs had even picked up on it. Sibling duo leading post-acquisition transformation. Cringy title, but still. It felt good to be recognized together, not in competition. One morning, I walked into the executive floor to find James already in the glass-walled strategy war room, arranging sticky notes in columns like he was channeling his inner agile coach. "Morning," I said, stepping inside. "Hey," he said, gesturing to the board. "I was mapping out user friction points from the last data migration. I think we can reduce drop-off if we reroute the authentication process." I nodded, studying his notes. "That's solid. You're starting to sound like a VP." He grinned. "Don't get ahead of yourself. I still Google half the acronyms in the decks you send me." We laughed, a sound I hadn't shared with him in this room before. It felt earned. That afternoon, Synergy's quarterly town hall was held in the central auditorium. Alyssa, our CEO, stood on stage with her signature presence, poised, visionary, exacting. Toward the end of her speech, she smiled. "I'd like to close today by highlighting a team that exemplifies cross-functional excellence and collaboration during a complex integration process. Brianna Hayes and James Hayes. The spotlight." Hit us, people clapped. James looked stunned. "We often talk about tech disruption," Alyssa continued, "but what's more disruptive than two siblings, one a strategist, the other a coder, finding synergy in a high-stakes environment? That's the future of leadership: empathy, adaptability, and teamwork." I clapped along with the others, feeling James's eyes on me. I turned to find him already watching. "Lunch?" he mouthed. I nodded. We slipped out quietly and found a quiet spot in the company courtyard. The trees were in bloom, soft pink petals fluttering in the breeze. "So," James said, picking at his sandwich, "we're a brand now." "Apparently," I said. "Better than being the cautionary tale we were heading toward?" He laughed. "Truth." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you think people like us are ever really allowed to succeed without being compared?" I paused. "In this family or the world?" "Both. In the world, yes, but it's rare. In this family?" I gave a half smile. "We're rewriting the rules." He nodded slowly, absorbing that. "By the way," he said, "I've been meaning to ask. Grandma's birthday is coming up. Want to do something together for her?" The question caught me off guard, not because of its content, but because of its tone. James hadn't included me in family plans like that in years. Love that, I said. What did you have in mind? I was thinking we could digitize her old recipe books, maybe build a small private site. She's always talking about how no one remembers how to make her lemon bars right. I blinked. James, that's a thoughtful idea. He shrugged. Figured we could build it together. You handle UX and structure. I'll do the back end. I grinned. Just like the old days. Except back then, I was the one begging to help, and you were the gatekeeper. Yeah, well, he said sheepishly. I was kind of a jerk. A bit, I teased. We clinked coffee cups and returned to the office with plans forming. We met over the next several weekends, sometimes in my apartment, sometimes at his, occasionally at Grandma Eleanor's cozy kitchen table, which was littered with index cards, flour dust, and old family photos. The recipe digitization site wasn't just a project, it became a bridge, stitched together with stories and laughter and shared history. James taught me to use a lightweight framework he'd built himself. I countered by showing him how to build navigation trees that didn't confuse users. We debated font sizes, argued over color palettes, and agreed, shocking both of us, on a minimalist layout with modern typography and a soft yellow background that mirrored Grandma's vintage tablecloth. One night, we sat in my living room, laptops open, finalizing the site. This looks good, he said, a hint of wonder in his voice. It does, I agreed. He looked at me then, earnest. I didn't think we'd ever do something like this again. Me neither. He hesitated, then said, You know, the thing I've always envied about you isn't your job or your confidence. You can see people. See them. I blinked. I spent years trying to prove I was smarter, he said. But you just tried to be seen. By this family, I said quietly. By you. His face softened. Well, I see you now. We launched the recipe site privately that night and presented it to Grandma at her birthday dinner the following weekend. She cried, Mom cried, even Dad looked misty-eyed. You two, she said, pointing her fork at us, are finally cooking together in every sense. We laughed, but inside I felt a warmth I hadn't known I'd been missing. With the next tier integration fully transitioned, I was preparing to move on to Synergy's next big acquisition when Alyssa called me into her office. I want to talk to you about something, she said, gesturing for me to sit. We're expanding into Europe, and I want someone to lead the strategy, someone who understands both the people and the process. I blinked. You're asking me to go overseas? Berlin for 6 months, then maybe London. You'd be building out a cross-continental leadership pod. It's a big step, but you're ready. I was quiet for a moment. Then I smiled. I'd love to. I called James that night. Berlin? He said. That's huge. I know, I'm nervous but excited. There was a pause. You'll kill it, he said. They don't know how lucky they are. I laughed. Thanks. Just don't forget us little people back home. As if I could. The night before my flight, we had dinner at Grandma's again. James brought a bottle of wine. I brought dessert. After we cleaned up, we sat quietly in the living room. You know, he said, I used to think being the best meant winning. Now I think it means making space for others to shine. I nodded. I used to think respect had to be demanded, but sometimes it's earned just by being real. He clinked his glass with mine. To be real. Berlin was colder than expected, emotionally and meteorologically. The office was modern and sleek, full of people with sharp cheekbones and sharper ideas. But there was a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. I was the outsider, flown into lead strategic transformation, which many quietly interpreted as clean house. It took every ounce of emotional intelligence and caffeine to earn their cautious respect, a missed home. I missed Grandma's pot roast. I missed arguing about code structures with James over late-night takeout. But most of all, I missed feeling known. In Berlin, I was just Brianna Hayes, executive strategist from Synergy Tech. Impressive on paper, unproven in person. Still, the work was exhilarating. The European market posed different challenges: stricter privacy laws, unique user behavior, and more collaborative hierarchies. It forced me to evolve. I learned to listen more, lead with questions, and step back just enough to let others step forward. James and I had set up a standing call every Sunday evening, his time. At first, it was just to stay in touch, but slowly it became more a pulse check, a sounding board, a place to decompress. One Sunday, a few months in, he said something that made me pause. "I think I'm ready," he said, "to go for CTO." I stared at the screen. "You're serious?" "Yeah," he nodded. "But not at Synergy. I've been talking with a startup, Praxis Systems. They're building AI compliance frameworks for mid-sized tech firms. They need someone who can lead tech and understand scale. And they want you? They reached out after that town hall video you sent me went viral. You know, the one where Alyssa called us out as a sibling case study?" I smiled. "You going to take it?" "I think I am," he said. And weirdly, it feels less like leaving and more like arriving. When I finally landed back in San Francisco, James was already deep into his role at Praxis. He met me at the airport in jeans and a hoodie, back to his coder roots, but now with a quiet authority. "You look tired," he said. "You look smug," I replied, both accurate. We hugged. It felt good, genuine, grounding. Over the next few weeks, we found our new rhythm. We weren't working in the same building anymore, but we were still collaborating in quieter ways. I'd ping him about infrastructure concerns at a new portfolio company. He'd call me when his dev team hit scaling issues. We'd become, to our surprise and everyone else's, a trusted professional duo. But the biggest shift came not from the tech world, but from our fathers. Dad's unexpected turn one afternoon. I got a text from Dad. "Lunch? Just the two of us. Your choice of restaurant." That alone was shocking. Dad had always preferred big family dinners where he could steer the conversation, or better yet, retreat behind a newspaper. Just the two of us? Curious, I chose a quiet bistro downtown. When he arrived, he was carrying a manila folder. "I've been reading," he said, tapping it. "About women in leadership, about the gender dynamics in tech, about imposter syndrome." I blinked. He looked nervous. "I realized," he continued, "that I've spent too many years praising James for his tech skills while reducing your brilliance to being organized or a good speaker. That was wrong." I wasn't sure what to say. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared of how strong you were becoming. It challenged how I saw myself, how I saw fatherhood." A pause. "I'm sorry, Brianna. I should have told you years ago how proud I am. Not just of what you've done, but who you are." Tears burned in my eyes. I wasn't used to hearing this from him, this direct, humble honesty. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you know." He slid the folder over to me. Inside were printed articles, quotes highlighted, and notes scribbled in the margins. "I'm trying," he said simply. The following weekend, as promised, James and I joined Grandma Eleanor for dinner in her cozy apartment. The lemon bars were perfect, the roast warm, and the conversation even warmer. After coffee, Grandma settled into her favorite chair, fixing us both with her signature direct gaze. "So," she said, "how are my two tech executives getting along these days?" James and I exchanged amused glances. "Subtlety isn't your strong suit, is it, Grandma?" I teased. "At my age, dear, there's no time for beating around the bush." "We're doing well," James said. "Better than I expected, honestly." "He's learning to accept feedback without taking it as a personal attack," I added. "And she's learning to give feedback without sounding like a corporate training manual," James countered. Grandma smiled, satisfied. "Good. Families should be honest with each other, but kindly so." She leaned forward. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately," I said. "About honesty in families. For years, we all played along with this fiction. That James was the tech star. Me by staying quiet. James by exaggerating. The rest of the family never questioned it." James nodded. "It was comfortable. For me, anyway. I got to be the star." "And what have you learned," Grandma asked, "from having that comfort disrupted?" He took a long breath. "That comfort isn't always growth. That being the star kept me from learning. And that I missed out on an ally by treating my sister like a rival." She turned to me. "And you, Brianna?" That silence isn't peace, I said. That dimming myself to protect others doesn't serve anyone. And that being authentic, even when it's uncomfortable, is the only way to truly be seen. Grandma nodded. The real test is taking those lessons forward. Family patterns love to repeat themselves if we're not vigilant. We're working on it, I said. James has been asking for my input on managing his new team, I added. And Brianna's been helping me navigate expansion strategy, he said. Turns out we're more complementary than competitive. Which I've been saying for approximately 30 years, Grandma said dryly. We laughed. As the evening wound down and we prepared to leave, Grandma held both our hands in hers. I'm proud of you both, she said. Not just for your professional accomplishments, impressive as they are, but for the hard work of breaking unhealthy patterns. That takes more courage than any promotion. As James drove me back through the winding streets of the city, I stared out the window, her words echoing. Disrupting the comfortable fiction had taken courage. But the freedom that came from authenticity, real, raw, unfiltered, was worth it. James and I would never have a perfect relationship. We were too different. But we had found a way to respect those differences, to use them as strength, not division. In tech, we talk about innovation, disruption, and adaptability. We'd finally applied those principles to something more fragile, family. And the truth? The truth hadn't broken us. It had rebuilt us on a foundation of mutual respect, of shared growth, of genuine connection. Have you ever experienced a moment where standing in your truth changed a relationship for the better? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this journey of sibling rivalry turned collaboration, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about navigating complex family dynamics, and share this with someone who might need permission to shine without dimming themselves for others. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the most powerful disruption isn't in technology, but in the patterns we've accepted for too long.